Hello, friends. Ted Wilcox here again to bring you into another thrilling chapter in our continuing saga of magic, mystery, and the American century. But before we begin, here's Charlie Pulcher with a brief review of our last episode.
Last time, inside Isaiah Scott's guarded estate, Whiskey pressed for the truth and found a man coming apart. Isaiah swore he did not take his daughter, revealing that Hallie had been meeting him in secret, and that the murder victim, Jordan Bryant, was one of Isaiah's liberated saints, assigned to watch over her the night she was taken. Now the clock is ticking. Isaiah is ready for war, and if Hallie isn't found soon, he will burn the city to the ground to get her back. With his suspicions turned outward, Whiskey sets his sights on George Baptiste, the Saints of Samedi, and even Baron Samedi himself. Can he stop a gang war before it begins? Or has San Francisco already passed the point of no return? We'll find out now.
This is the Mythic Chronicles. Entry 1. Crime Wave. Chapter 12. Whiskey Goes to Winterland. October 24th, 1951. With its layered history and rich blend of cultures, the 8-block square tucked southwest of Nob Hill, west of Market Street, and north of Mission, the Fillmore District wasn't particularly nice, clean, or even safe. It was chaotic, wonderful, terrible, and utterly impartial. A world all its own. And at night, the otherworldly glow of neon and phosphorescent lights slid over her like a slinky black dress. Blemishes blurred. Temptations gleamed. The worn coquette transformed into the wild, seductive goddess. She didn't give a damn if you were human or mythic. Flash some green and come to swing, and she was yours. Locals called her the Mo. Whiskey brooded as he moved through the ever-crowded Post Street. The air was cool and crisp, but fatigue gnawed at him. His talk with Isaiah and the drain from an aborted use of passion had left his mind sluggish, his soul worn thin. Pulling a handkerchief from his pocket, he dabbed the sweat from his brow, ignoring the tremor in his hands. On a good day, the clashing and mingling of so many auras would be tolerable. White noise. But in his current state, it was like driving through a tunnel in a convertible. "You know what I hate about you?" Whiskey sighed. "I stopped counting a long time ago," he thought, weaving through the line outside Club Alabama, where bebop spilled into the street. The marquee flashed names like Gillespie, Parker, and Holiday. "For someone born to live outside the rules," Passenger continued, as if Whiskey hadn't spoken, "you allow yourself to be caged like any other animal. Take this walk, for instance. Here you are slogging through a street full of prey you refuse to touch, even though your anima's a quarter depleted, just because George Baptiste told you to take this route." Whiskey shrugged. "It's a simple ask, and a smart one. It shows George I'm willing to play by his terms, and gives him plenty of warning that I'm coming." He let a group of clubgoers pass, then used vigilance to extend his senses a few blocks behind him. The two men tailing him wove through the crowd. Shifting focus to the rooftop of a club called The Favor, he caught the glint of telescopic lenses, binoculars, a third observer. If by terms you mean control, and by warning you mean setting up an ambush, because he's the one who took Hallie and wants to silence anyone closing in, then I guess we agree. Whiskey rolled his eyes. Either way, I still need to talk to George to get a clear picture. Unlike Isaiah, whose security is still getting established, George has had 2 decades to prepare. Sneaking in and forcing him to talk isn't an option. "And so you're sure George isn't behind this entire scheme himself?" Passenger pressed. "Isaiah's obviously unstable, but who's to say what he told you wasn't true, and George is behind the girl's kidnapping? You're just going to walk into his lair, filled with his most loyal killers, and start asking questions? How do you think that's going to turn out, Kenichiro?" Whiskey raised an eyebrow. "You trust Isaiah?" he asked. "After that conversation?" Passenger pulsed an eye roll. "I'm not an idiot, Kenichiro. Of course I don't trust him. But I'm also not foolish enough to throw away everything he said. And neither are you." Whiskey dipped his head in acknowledgement. "And I still have a hard time believing he would kill one of his own," he thought. "If for no other reason, then it had cost him one of his most loyal followers, right when he needs every ally he can get. And you have to appreciate the way the man is finding an outlet for his grief, Passenger said before pointedly adding, unlike some people. We all handle stress differently, Passenger, Whiskey thought, a small grin touching his lips. But back to your original point. I'm struggling with Isaiah's theory because, above all else, George sees himself as a protector of his territory, and that includes the people in it, especially his family. He's not shy about violence, but I don't think he'd use Hallie to get revenge on Isaiah. She's the reason he let him live in the first place. Passenger said nothing, which Whiskey took as a good sign. George Baptiste, like his twin brother Felix, was bold, charismatic, and devoted to his cause. He'd earned a reputation as a pillar of his community. But where Felix built his name on trust and respect, George had chosen another path. Through sheer cunning and ruthlessness, he'd built the Saints of Samedi into a gang that controlled everything from California to Grove, between Divisadero and Franklin. Racketeering, smuggling, and prostitution were their bread and butter. Fear and oppression were their weapons. A burst of laughter nearby pulled Whiskey back to the present, and he stepped aside to avoid a cluster of club-goers spilling onto the sidewalk. All right, Passenger said at last. Then at least go into the meeting on a full stomach. Whiskey scanned the group of young men. High on drink, neon, and night, they barely noticed him. What you sipped from those elves was nowhere near what you should have taken, it said. Passenger wasn't wrong. The incident had left a gnawing hollow in Whiskey's chest, and these young bucks' emotions were completely unshielded. None had any real anima discipline, and alcohol-infused lust radiated from their auras like heat from a furnace in a cool room. It won't take long, Passenger continued, and you, of all people, should know how fickle humans get when emotions run high. Isaiah was a wreck, and he's supposed to be the stable one. These people are bracing for war. You should be ready. With passion, he could twist any of those emotions and take what he needed. And he needed their anima. He should... No, Whiskey said, sharper than he intended. Several in the group turned, startled. Whiskey's heart sped up as their surprise edged toward fear, annoyance tinged with anger joining the mix. He exhaled sharply, shaking his head as he picked up his pace, passing the group while they cast confused glances at his back. No. He crushed the impulse before it could take hold. I'm fine. But they're not the way, he muttered, cutting it off. Finding Hallie before this spirals into an all-out gang war, however, is. So stop distracting me, and help. Passenger pulsed the mental equivalent of crossed arms, but went quiet. A few steps later, its tone shifted from prodding to wary. It just got real quiet around here, didn't it? Whiskey slowed, scanning his surroundings. The usual buzz of the mow had vanished. No music, no chatter, no laughter. Just the crunch of his shoes on the pavement. He stopped at the intersection of Post and Steiner. Shops and clubs that should have been open were dark, windows shuttered. The entire street had gone still, as if someone had shut off the flow of humanity. Glancing over his shoulder, he spotted the two men who'd been tailing him. They'd stopped at the last intersection, lingering just outside the crowd, making no move to follow. And you've picked up a few more sets of eyes, Passenger added. Inside the locksmith a few doors down, and another from the roof of Winterland. Fighting the urge to scratch the spot on his chest where a sniper's sights might be trained, Whiskey kept his pace steady as he headed for the bulky silhouette of the Winterland Auditorium, the heart of the Saints of Samedi's power. Usually a catch-all for live events, the old auditorium and ice rink was a hulking structure of no particular distinction. Tonight, like the rest of the street, it stood dead. Under a rust-stained awning, he reached a side door marked "Rink Closed" in bold black letters. Without hesitation, he opened it and stepped inside. The moment he crossed the threshold, something lunged from the shadows. Passenger yelled something, but Whiskey was already moving. He triggered ambition, speed and power surged through his limbs. He darted toward the nearest wall and called wrath. The energy whip snapped through the dark, coiling around the attacker's neck. With a sharp tug, he yanked, and the figure's head popped off, clattering to the floor. It wasn't until passenger burst into laughter that Whiskey noticed the plastic jack-o'-lantern face grinning up at him from where it had rolled to a stop. He groaned. The attacker was a scarecrow in a flannel shirt and straw hat, one limp arm clutching a pumpkin bucket filled with candy. A laminated sign dangled from its wrist. "Welcome to Winterland's wacky haunted house." Looking around, he saw the entire lobby decorated in cute, kitschy Halloween frippery. Signs welcomed patrons to the spooky snack shack. Threat neutralized, passenger chortled. Oh, wait. There are some of those stupid laughing bats by the soda fountain. Take those out too. The scarecrow tipped over, collapsing into a pile of cloth, wire, and bunched-up newspaper stuffing. Panting, Whiskey resisted the urge to put his face in his hands and, pretending the heat in his cheeks didn't exist, gathered what dignity he could and swept his gaze across the lobby. Cheap cardboard cutouts, dangling strings of plastic bats, grinning pumpkins, and other gaudy decorations in every shade of orange littered the space. He sniffed, catching something beneath the layers of buttered popcorn, carpet cleaner, and spilled snacks. Soap and lit cigarettes. Smell that? He thought, eyes shifting toward the hallway cloaked in shadow. Ah, yes, passenger murmured, amusement mellowing. Greeters. The thin, threadbare carpeting muffled each step as he wove past the gaudy decor and time-worn columns, past faded drapery and curling posters for upcoming attractions. As he neared the edge of the lobby, the atmosphere shifted. The air turned heavy, dense. The faint hum of tired electric lights swelled, drowning out all other sounds. Shadows didn't just gather, they bloomed, pooling in corners, crawling up walls, clinging like ink suspended in still water. They didn't dim the light, they devoured it. Whiskey paused at the threshold. One more step, and the darkness would swallow him whole. Passenger chuckled again, but the sound had changed. The earlier amusement was gone, replaced by something deeper, heavier, menacing. A slow grin crept across Whiskey's face. He adjusted his coat, eyes narrowing on the dark ahead. Then he stepped forward.
Thank you for listening to this episode of The Mythic Chronicles. If you're enjoying the journey, please consider rating and reviewing the podcast. Your words might help bring more mythics into the fold. To listen ahead, unlock bonus content, and gain access to VIP Discord roles and behind-the-scenes updates, check out our Patreon or visit us at SeanTLaffertyBooks.com. I'm Sean. Thanks again for being here.